Hello, I'm Carl French from the Endless Bookcase, and I'm very pleased to say that I've got an opportunity now to have a brief discussion interview, if you like, with our author, David Yeabsley, who's written a book called Future Proof Yourself, which in my humble opinion is very relevant at the current time while we're going through lockdown and so on, but I think is of long-term interest as well. But I'm going to focus a little bit on some of the short-term stuff. So, hello, David. Nice to have you here, and we're going to have some questions, aren't we?
Yeah, hello, Carl. Yeah, great to be here, and thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I suppose the obvious question for anyone, especially knowing your book, is to ask, what is future proofing?
Okay, it is purely and simply the concept of keeping yourself relevant and value for the rest of your working career, whether you are self-employed, run your own business, or employed by someone else. Who knows when we're going to be able to retire? So how are we going to develop our skills, our knowledge, our experience, our wisdom, great bundles of enthusiasm, so we can always continue to be employable?
Ah, well, that strikes me as something from my own experience that's relevant throughout one's career. I've certainly had times in my career where I thought, I really should have thought ahead a bit more
Yeah.
on that regard. But why would you say it's particularly relevant at the current time?
Okay. Well, there's obviously different aspects of future proofing, and one of them is, sometimes getting dealt a difficult situation and bouncing back, and perhaps looking at new opportunities. And we have this thing that we talk about that, don't just rely on a CV to get yourself a job.
Mm.
You need to think about yourself as a limited company, and in that limited company it needs lots of different areas to market, as we do. um, as a limited company, you have to have your learning and development department, so you need to be developing yourself. You need good production, so when you are performing, you're the best of your abilities. And of course, one of the most important things that we don't always like is selling ourselves. And if we can't talk positively about ourselves, who's going to do it for us? And they are current aspects at the moment that are really quite important, that perhaps we're looking for new opportunities. That's in the short term, and obviously long term is about hopefully being able to managing our career so we can stay relevant and value. Obviously what's happening at the moment with the coronavirus is just, I think, escalated the process. We are going to have to be working in totally different ways coming out of this, as we are now. This is the new normal, but this was happening anyway. But this was like 2-3 years down the track, and it's all fast tracked. And I think future proofing, we used to sort of talk about having a 5 and 10 year plan, but now what's your 3 month, 6 month and 12-month plan? So it's very, very relevant in taking control and looking after ourselves.
Yeah, I can see that, and I think a lot of people now feel that the changes that were introduced because of coronavirus are actually permanent changes that are going to affect the way the world of work works. And obviously, on top of that, you've got the fact that some working practice is going to change so much with people being made redundant and so on. So maybe there's a lot more of these ideas in the front of people's minds about, looking ahead and not
Yeah.
getting caught out again and so on.
Yeah, and also people may end up stuck in careers and jobs because they daren't move through fear. And how do they reposition themselves? And also
Mm.
to reflect and think about the company that I'm working with. Is it fit enough and strong enough? And another thing that we'd not really necessarily think about is, what is our industry going to look like in 12 months and 18 months time? Jobs that don't even happen at the moment will be the new jobs of sort of 18 months to 2 years time. And
Mm.
some jobs we're doing now won't even exist. So it's how people are going to be flexible and able to adapt in the current situation as well.
Yeah. So it will be really interesting to see what does evolve and how things change.
Mm.
And of course, looking back historically, it's very obvious how much change has happened and continues to happen. I
Yes.
mean, if you look at the computer industry today, with so many different jobs that didn't exist just a few years ago, new ones are occurring every week. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's very interesting. Another point you made that I think is particularly significant is this whole thing about people thinking about themselves almost as a business. I remember a mentor I had years ago said, "Carl, whoever you work for, always remember that you work for yourself."
Yeah.
And I think that people don't see themselves as me limited, and
Yeah.
and do that. So that's all, I think, perhaps part of your broader message in a
Yes.
sense. Yeah.
And people look at me at horror when I say to them, you should treat your manager, if you are working for a company, you should treat your manager and the business as a client. And they
Mm.
look at me, well, do I have to? Well, yeah, because if you don't understand what they want, need, and desire for the future and what their vision is and how you're going to add value and be part of that, how can you contribute?
Mm. I think we've perhaps partly covered this, but you might have some other more points. You personally, what are you learning? What are you getting out of this particular lockdown, and how that's affecting the thinking in connection with your book?
It's changed immensely. It's fast tracked a lot of things that I was looking to do and doing them a lot quicker. So I've spent the last 21 years working with lots of different organizations of all shapes and sizes in lots of different business sectors, running leadership, management, and personal effective training programs where I've gone into their businesses and also done a lot of coaching. Um, so a lot of that is now gone for obvious reasons. Unfortunately, very sadly, a lot of my companies that I have worked for have furloughed a lot of their people. So my route to the market is there isn't an opportunity there.
Mm.
So what I'm starting to do a lot more is webinars on the concept of future-proofing yourself and inspiring and motivating people to you know to take control, and
Mm.
also doing one-to-one coaching sessions on the subject, and that's going very well actually. And one, I love it because I get to know about lots of different people and their stories, because I've got a real passion for this,
Mm.
and how people have learned and developed themselves. So I've changed in that way in coming
Mm.
to on offering more of a coaching rather than doing the training. But the book that I wrote, sort of last year,
Mm.
I'm very pleased I wrote it because I could see this happening,
Mm.
mainly based on all the coaching conversations I was having. I didn't see
No,
coronavirus
no,
happening, but I could
yeah,
see what was happening in the marketplace with
yeah.
people having to be more adaptable and transferable, um, and to develop and take more control. So I wrote the book and did the YouTube
Mm.
site that's gone
Mm.
very well, that just
Mm.
gives people access to a lot of
Mm.
information so they can look after themselves.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, you've obviously taken your own medicine, as they say, and
Trying
thinking
to.
about, yeah, and well, well, some of us do, tried to do that and adapt and look at your own development and opportunities and things. So, but what would your advice be to somebody else who, but maybe somebody listening to this? What can they do in broad terms to, develop themselves and see opportunities? They
Yeah,
may not be the same as the sort of things
yeah.
that you've been doing.
Very simply, I think it starts with reflection. We need to spend more time creating thinking time. So it's a bit like a limited company again. They have to spend time thinking about the market, where they're going, and things like that. So you need to create some thinking time. What are you good at? What are your strengths? Um, what are your passions in terms of your work? But then start to think, yeah, but is there a market out there for what I do? Um, so it is, I think about reflection, thinking about your job, your career, thinking about your work-life balance, what's important to you, bid on your values, and
Mm.
then perhaps sometimes getting some tough love from friends and colleagues,
Mm.
and get them to give you some feedback on what they think that you need to do to make sure that you can make an impact into the working environment. That's especially if you're looking for new opportunities at the moment.
Mm.
So I think it all starts with reflection and perhaps having some harsh conversations with yourself, not beat yourself up, because we all
Yeah,
suffered from
it's easy to do.
vulnerability. Yeah, I mean, I've
Yeah.
certainly suffered vulnerability through this process. Accept that, and then once you've done your reflection, build up contacts with people that you trust and think about who you talk to. I've come off the phone this morning to a great friend of mine. His name is also David. We went to school together, and he's my maverick, um, box of ideas. And he's gone through a tough time, and he just comes on the phone and he's like a whirlwind, lots of ideas, bang, 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 bang. Then he says something, I think, that is a brilliant idea. So surround yourself and talk to people that you know that you can trust, and know who not to talk to. I think that's really important. People that just talk about themselves and then can have a negative effect on you. So I think also creating a really good network of people is important. Reflection, network, and then you can then start to decide which directions you need to go in.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a heck of a lot of sense to me, and that point about, you know, the negativity and avoiding that. I mean, the news is full of so much awful stuff at the moment, and
Yeah,
yet you talk to a good, inspiring friend, and it's a different thing altogether. So, what else do you think you personally will do? Maybe things to share in terms of you know, your development of yourself in the business in the future. Are there any things that you
well,
thinking
it's
about or you
ongoing
share?
really. This time last year, I was just starting to write the book.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought 12 months on, one, that David would ever be able to write a book. That was a huge challenge and really came out of my comfort zone to do so. That's one area. I never thought I'd have a successful YouTube site. I never thought I'd be doing webinars, and I never thought that I would be doing lots of interviews and talks at conferences about the concept of future proofing. So it's really helped me transfer from my training company, which I still do, which is all going well, or was going incredibly well up until
Yeah,
recently.
I
But
will again.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I knew in terms of my own lifestyle, my age,
Mm,
energy levels, and everything, I
mm,
needed to change. And so
mm,
I was future-proofing myself, as you said earlier,
mm,
by doing this whole
mm,
exercise over the last 12 months. And so I continue to develop that. Um, Quite where it's going to go, I don't think anybody really knows. I'm just talking to lots of people, getting lots of ideas. I did a webinar yesterday and somebody said something, and I wrote down this idea. I thought, that's a really nice idea. And
mm,
then in the afternoon, I wrote a blog on it.
mm,
So I'm constantly, talking to people, generating ideas and creativity, and having a very positive approach towards that, and
mm.
very proactive. Because I have this phrase, as it says on the book, if you don't look after yourself, who's going to do it for you?
Well, exactly. Yeah. Well, I think that's a really nice segue into what we probably ought to do now, which is sort of find some way to wrap this up. And you know, it's really interesting. You describing, you know, the changes that have gone through as part of the process of writing the book and then doing YouTube and so on. And that historically, that there are so many cases of people who've uh, attempted to do that and be successful at it. And I have lots of prospective authors talking to me, and they're always a bit unsure about whether or not they could do it, you know, like anything else you've not done before. And I try to encourage people. And I don't believe that it's true that there's a book in everyone, but I think there's a lot of people have got some wonderful ideas and expertise to share, and they can do part of what you're talking about, which is future-proof
Yeah,
themselves from doing that.
yeah,
So my feeling is that, you know, one of the strong concluding uh, points to make as part of this interview. I know I'm biased here, but I think anybody listening to this thinks I would like to future-proof myself. I would like to do what David's just described that he's done, and I would say part of making that happen could well be, well, have a read of the book first and you'll get some ideas and
yeah,
inspiration, and then go from there. And when you
yeah,
finally want to write a book, you can come and talk to me, but read
yeah.
David's book first.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Can I
Well,
just give
so
one
thank you.
tip? Can I just
Please
one
do.
tip?
Yeah. What? Yeah, absolutely.
Because I dare say everybody writes a book in a different way, and
Mm,
you've got to find out. What I did to start off with, I just wrote down all the stories that I use in my work. I've got
mm,
loads of them. They're all in the book.
mm,
Everything
mm,
from, why I never phoned my sister during the week. And then my wife said to me, yeah, but if she's just won the lottery, can you give her a ring? Well, yeah, of course I'll ring her, because,
yeah,
there was a
yeah,
purpose.
yeah.
So it's full of stories about everything that I've done in the past. And I didn't know how to write a book. So I just literally sat down, got a Word document, and I came up with loads of stories. I actually
Mm.
came up with 100 plus. Didn't use them
Mm.
all.
No.
That was then helped me to
Mm.
actually create content for the book, and it was a very good start for me. I know that won't work for everybody. They like to
No.
have a real clear plan. I'm not like that. I'm
Mm.
a bit maverick.
Well, I feel I have to respond to that because it's great. And I spend lots and lots of time coaching people when writing books. And for non-fiction, lots of people plan and they think very much in terms of pure factual content. And they often start off by planning something that's incredibly dry because it's all just fact, 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 fact. And I'm always desperately trying to persuade people to turn to their experiences
Yeah. All
and
right.
the
I
stories
did
that
it
they can
right.
tell. Yeah, well, absolutely. The stories that they tell and making that very much part of, the way it's written. And I think you can, there's different ways of coming at writing a book. Lots of different ways. There isn't one perfect way, but it is really important, particularly in non-fiction, to make sure there is content in there that really
Yeah.
engages the reader. And I don't think there's much better than including what are in effect relevant stories that are part of the
Yeah.
point that you're making. So
Yeah.
you might have done it by accident, but I think you did it very well. And the proof's
That's
in the
made me
pudding.
laugh, that has.
Yeah, well, that's good. Excellent. Yeah, very good. Well, thank you,
Brilliant.
David. We probably ought to stop there. We'll
Okay.
put a link on this so people can find your book, etc.
Yes.
Yeah,
All right.
and yeah, bye for now.
Thanks very much, Carl. Thanks for your time. Speak to you soon.